be showing you how to make mac and cheese and all the chemical reactions.
The chemical reaction between density, volume, and mass, law of conservation, mass, particle movements of solid, liquid, and gas, temperature, and heat, affects the temperature, change of particles, what happens to particles during a phase change, and affects the temperature, volume, and gas on air pressure.
Before we begin our recipe, we are going to be testing what will happen to the water when we boil it.
We will begin with 75 ml of water, and the weight is also 75 grams. We will then put it on the stove and boil it for 5 minutes. We know that the volume and the mass will decrease because we know that when the water reaches the boiling point, which is 100 degrees Celsius, and then the water will then begin to evaporate. Evaporation is a change of state when liquid turns into a gas. It evaporates because of the heat. The warmer the liquid, the faster the molecules move. The more often then they pop into the air. Condensation happens when vapor molecules in the air come into contact with the cold molecules. They also become colder. This causes them to move slower and slower. As they get slower, the less mutual force of attraction. They are forced to grab together because they are force of mutual attraction, which helps the gas become a liquid again. This causes it to cloud up since the change from vapor to liquid is caused by the arrangement of molecules becoming more and more dense.
After letting the water cool, we measured it again and the volume was 60 ml and the mass was 60 grams. Now we will perform a similar experiment but with milk. You're going to take 118 ml of milk, which weighs approximately 118 grams. We will then put it on the stove and begin to boil it. As you can see, the milk is rising and there's bubbles forming and it's coming up across the edge of the pan. The bubbles are molecules that are trying to escape and are turning into a gas and evaporating. In a gas, the molecules are moving freely. As you can see, the milk is becoming thicker, but we don't understand why, since it is still being heated. Once we measured it, we were surprised that the volume went down by 10 ml, but the mass stayed the same.
In our experiment, we are going to take 800 ml of water, which weighs 800 grams, and we will be placing it into a pot and putting it onto the stove. We will now begin to boil it, and once it reaches the boiling point, which is 100 degrees Celsius, we are going to start seeing the little bubbles come off, and of course it's evaporating. The water starts to rise because of thermal expansion, because of the effective temperature of change on particle movements. When heat is added, the molecules move faster. The space between atoms increase. Because of the heat, the liquid, gas, or solid takes up more space. Now we will be taking 600 ml of dry macaroni. The mass is 630 grams. We're going to place the macaroni in the pot of boiling water and mix it well. We are going to wait 10 minutes until the pasta finishes cooking. We are going to drain out the water and then measure it. We had a large decrease of water. We lost 400 ml and 400 grams. This is because the dried macaroni absorbed the water. However, as you can see, the water did change into a yellowish color, and we don't know why. The macaronis did become larger, which explains why the volume increased, but this does not explain why the mass decreased. The cooked pasta became less dense after we cooked it because of all the water it absorbed.
I'm going to take 125 ml of butter, which equals to 118 grams, and put it into a pot and turn on the heat. The butter is currently in a state of a solid. This means that each molecule attracts to another one, and they move closer together and they move away from each other, but mutual attraction pulls them together and mutual repulsion pulls them away. This process happens repeatedly and to all the molecules in the object. They never touch each other, but they never escape. When looking at them from a distance, they make up a lattice work. However, when a solid gets hot enough, they melt. When they melt, they lose their shape and become a liquid. A liquid has no shape or form. As something gets hotter, the molecules begin to move faster and faster, swinging and moving back and forth, the hotter it gets. This happens until the force of attraction is no longer strong enough to hold them, so they break apart. When it melts, the collapse of the pattern of vibrating molecules that's been holding the solid together. The opposite happens when molecules get cold. They slow down and liquid turns into solids. Liquid molecules are slightly packed, but they aren't organized. We're now going to mix in flour. Next, we're going to add some milk in and mix it. After 5 minutes, the milk will become thicker because of liquid expansion. We are now going to take some out and add 1 egg in it, and we're going to whisk it very fast and then re-enter it into the pan. We do this separately because if we put it in the pot, then the egg would start cooking immediately. Now we're going to add some cheddar cheese into it and mix.
We put the mac and cheese in the baking pan, 236 ml of cheese on top. We're going to put the baking dish into the oven. The mac and cheese is expanding because the pressure is greater on the inside. However, we don't understand why the mac and cheese is browning on the top. Pressure and volume have an indirect relationship. Pressure and temperature have a direct relationship. Temperature and volume also have a direct relationship.